Hello everyone, I'm the Saxy Gamer. Today we're here for the first impressions video for the Mali. So for once I've actually been able to get this video out in a reasonable time. You know, I'm not like 3 weeks late for this one, because the first look video for this was just released probably about an hour ago by the time I upload this video. I'm trying to get it out, you know, ideally as fast as I can. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and watch it. I'm going to make sure I link it in the video description below. I don't want to play it for you just right now just because I'm not sure if that violates any of YouTube's fair use policies, and I don't even want to run the risk. So if you haven't seen the video yet, go ahead and check it out. Link is in the description below. So the Mali, at my first impressions, I'm honestly not sure what to think. I'm inclined to say that they're not going to be that good, but at the same time, there are reasons that I think they could be incredibly strong. So let's go ahead and let's just skip to their abilities to start off with. So their first ability is known as Sahel Merchants, and it makes it so that their international trade routes gain +1 gold for every flat desert tile in the origin city. In addition to that, they receive +1 trade capacity every time they enter a golden age. So this is one of those abilities that I'm very mixed on. So the +1 trade capacity every time you enter a golden age, I think that that's going to be pretty good. That's probably going to get you in an average game. That's probably going to get you maybe like 3 extra trade routes. Probably anywhere from 2 to 4, depending on how good you are at achieving golden ages. I would assume that heroic ages count for this too. So I would just imagine. If not, then that's going to be a load of garbage. But I would imagine that heroic ages count towards giving you an extra trade route capacity as well. But I think that part's very good because it's very evident that the Mali are going to be extremely gold and trade dependent. So getting those extra trade route capacities is very good. So this is the one that I'm a little bit conflicted on though. International trade routes gain +1 gold for every flat desert tile in the origin city. Oh, okay, never mind. Reading this back again, I just realized it's every flat desert tile in the origin city. So I think that this ability is going to be pretty strong now. So whenever, this is actually the second time I'm recording this video because I went through it once to just kind of talk it all out to myself and, you know, kind of gain an understanding. But whenever I first went through this, I thought that this was every flat desert tile in the target city, but it isn't. It's in the origin city. So I actually think that this is probably going to be quite strong. So later on in the video here, let me pan to it, they show that this city right here, which doesn't even seem to have that many flat desert tiles, is going to be gaining 10 gold from other bonuses. So I would imagine that at least part of that is from these flat desert tiles. So you can see that this is pretty strong. And this is turn 133, so we are a decent way into the game. But 18 gold from a trade route to a city-state, that's not bad. 15 gold to someone else's city, definitely not bad. I think that's pretty decent. And the other thing is, the Mali are definitely going to be settling in the desert because they have a lot of things that make them generally want to settle in the desert that we'll talk about in just a bit here. So overall, I think that Sahel Merchants is actually going to be a really strong ability. You're going to get a lot of extra gold from these trade routes. I think that this is going to be most impactful in the early game whenever, you know, if you settle your capital in a lot in the desert like this. Getting an early trade route that gives +15 gold per turn, that's going to be ridiculous. It's going to be so strong because early on that's going to make it so that you are able to purchase units and buildings very quickly whenever everything is so cheap. So for that reason, I think that Sahel Merchants is going to be very good, and that those extra trade route capacities is just, that's like the cherry on top of being pretty nice. Their second ability is known as Songs of the Jelli or Songs of the Jelly. I kind of like Songs of the Jelly better just because it's jelly, and that's what you put on toast, and I quite like toast because it's early in the morning and I'm kind of hungry. So I'm going to call it Songs of the Jelly. But Songs of the Jelly makes it so that your city centers gain +1 faith and +1 food for every adjacent and desert hills tiles. Mines receive -1 production and +4 gold. You may purchase commercial hub buildings and districts with faith, and -30% production when constructing buildings or training units. So let's just go. There's a lot going on with this ability, so let's just go by each of the individual things. So first off, city centers gain +1 faith and +1 food for every adjacent desert and desert hills tile. I think that that's very strong. I think that's going to be very strong in the early game and when you're settling new cities. Because if we take a look back here, you can see that this city has +6 food per turn. And this is this actually isn't that early on in the game, but early on in the game, +6 food per turn for being settled in the desert is really strong. That's going to make it so that you get to 2 pop very fast. You can probably get up to 5 pop pretty fast as well. So once again, much like the Inca, this is one of those things that, for whatever reason, they are pushing towards. Someone must have just followed my Twitch, and OBS still makes the sound. But for whatever reason, like they're definitely pushing the food like growth on a lot of these new civs, which is something I like because it kind of incentivizes playing tall if you're able to get that much food. But early on, this is going to be really strong because you're going to grow your population very high, very fast, which is going to allow you to work more tiles. And normally the issue with desert is that their tile yields are just atrociously bad, which you can definitely see that they are here because this has no yields, this has no yields, this has no yields. That tile has a production, and this one has 3 gold. So those tile yields are terrible, but early on, if you're able to grow your population up enough to the point where you can work multiple tiles, that is going to kind of make up for some of the missing production and food that you would get from having like grasslands or plains instead of plain desert tiles. So I think early on that ability is going to be very nice. It's pretty much going to guarantee that you get the first Pantheon as well, just because you have +6 faith per turn, which is higher than maybe everybody except for Russia is going to have at that point in the game. So I think that is very strong. Mines receive -1 production and +4 gold. So this is one of the parts that I am slightly conflicted on. Losing 1 production on mines is gonna hurt, especially considering the fact that you're settling in desert, so your tile yields are they're just garbage anyways, because desert tiles just have bad yields. So this is gonna hurt because normally the way that you get production whenever you're settling desert cities is from mines on desert hills, because they actually have decent production. I mean, sure, they don't provide like any food, but they do have decent production. The fact that you lose production as the Mali from those mines is definitely gonna hurt. The fact that you gain gold, though, is very, very nice for reasons that we'll talk about when we talk about their unique district. And I think this is going to lead into just one of the ways that I think the way you're supposed to play the Mali is not to build things. You're supposed to build gold infrastructure and then buy everything. And it's one of those things that I have no idea how good or bad it's going to be, because I've never done it. Because that would be, if you tried to do that in like the current version of Civ with the current leaders, you would lose, because that would be terrible. Like, you would never be able to keep up if you tried that. But as the Mali, that's definitely going to be the way to play, and it's going to be interesting to see how good that actually is, because +4 gold is very strong. Once again, in the early game, that's going to be very impactful. If you can get an early builder and build 2 mines, that's +8 gold per turn, and you can get that on like turn 20 or earlier, depending on how fast you go for that builder. So I think the +4 gold is very nice. -1 production definitely does hurt, though. Just imagine what Petra's going to be like in Mali cities with this +4 gold on the mines, because the Petra will give a little bit of extra production. I think Petra gives production, right? But yeah, it'll kind of make up for that production, and it'll give you even more gold. So Petra on the Mali is going to be insane with a lot of mines, and you're going to be making some serious bank. So I think that this part of the ability is good, but I can't say for certain just because I don't know exactly how the Mali's playstyle is going to work out. You may purchase commercial hub districts and buildings with faith. This is actually, it's better than I thought it would be, just because I think the other way to play the Mali is definitely to go economy and faith synchronized or synergized with each other, just because of the unique district, once again, that we'll talk about in a little bit. So I think it's okay. It's not going to be too impactful, but it's not bad, so it's just okay. This part definitely hurts, though. -30% production when constructing buildings or training units. So that's big oof, especially in the early game when you're not going to yet have enough gold to build things. So even things, just think, building your first scout is going to take longer because you lose production. Building your first builder is going to take longer because you lose production. Building settlers in the early game is going to take longer because you lose production. So I think this is really going to hurt the early game, and I'm just imagining already my immense frustration. If you ever watch me on stream, you know that whenever I play on DD, for whatever reason, I just get attacked all the time on like turn 10. And I rage all the time because there's literally no way that I can produce units fast enough to keep up with the AI in DD. Just imagine how bad that problem is going to be on the Mali whenever your slingers and your warriors on, like turn 15, whenever you're getting attacked by 3 different AI, take longer to build because you lose production towards them. I can only imagine the rage that I'm going to experience whenever I'm playing the Mali. So I think early on, this really hurts the Mali because this delays your builders, this delays your settlers, this delays your scouts, this delays your early units, and that all happens before you have the gold to be able to afford to purchase those things instead. So I think this part is really bad for the Mali, especially for their early game. I think later on in the game, it's not going to matter too much because you're going to have enough of an economy to kind of make up for that lost production in purchasing things. But early on, and even maybe into the mid game, this is going to hurt a lot. Their unique unit is known as the Mandalek Cavalry, and it replaces the knight. So that means it is unlocked with stirrups. I called it stirrups again. Stirrups. It makes it so that trader units around within 4 tiles of the cavalry units will be immune to being plundered. Combat victories provide gold equal to the unit's base combat strength that they kill. So this unit, I think, is crap. I don't think it's very good. And if we go ahead and look at it over here, you can see it has 49 melee strength. Keep in mind that a knight's, like the normal knight melee strength is 48, so this has 1 additional combat strength over the knight, which is just, that's a sad bonus. The other thing is, if we look here, they're making 172 gold per turn. So by the time you get this unit, you're probably going to still be fighting, like swordsmen or slingers or archers or, I don't know, other units that are around that are less than 50 combat strength. So if you think about that, you're going to be getting less than 50 gold for each kill. You're already making 172.4 gold per turn at this point in the game, so that gold, unless you're killing a lot of units, is not going to add up very significantly. I mean, sure, it's going to be a little bit of a boost, but I don't think it's going to be significant enough to really warrant it. The other thing is that I just don't think that the Mali are going to be a domination civ. I think that you want to avoid war like the plague whenever you're playing the Mali, just because you want to make sure. I mean, okay, one of the other reasons is, okay, trader units are immune to being plundered if they're within 4 tiles of the cavalry units. Well, if you're not at war, they're not going to be plundered anyways, so who cares? So you don't want to risk getting your traders plundered with the Mali, and you also don't want to provide that many resources into protecting them. So if you're just not at war, you don't have to worry about any of that. You lose production from your mines, you lose production towards training units, so your only option really then is to just buy a bunch of units. And then once you declare war, people are not going to want to trade with you because you're going to get warmongering penalties, and that's going to be bad. So I think that the Mandalek Cavalry is just a crap unit because this part of the ability just not very good. If you're just not at war, they're not going to be plundered anyways. This extra gold is going to be okay, but I don't think it's going to add up all that significantly unless you're killing a ton of units. And just in general, I just don't think domination is going to be the way to go on the Mali. So for all of those reasons, I just think this is probably one of those unique units that I'm going to pass on. Their unique district, though, is known as the Suguba, and it is a unique district that replaces the commercial hub, and it makes it so that units, buildings, and districts are 20% cheaper to purchase with gold and faith in the city. In addition to this, it does have a little bit of extra adjacency bonus, so it gets +2 gold adjacency bonus for each adjacent holy site, and then just the usual bonuses that commercial hubs normally get. So I think this district right here is going to be like the core of playing the Mali, and it's going to be what makes the Mali. It's going to be what either makes or breaks the Mali. So the main thing here is that units, buildings, and districts are 20% cheaper to purchase with gold and faith in the city. And this really plays into that, meta I mentioned before with the Mali of just not producing things, but purchasing them instead. So you're going to be getting a lot of gold from Sahel merchants. You're going to be getting a lot of gold from your mines from Songs of the Jelly. You're going to be getting a little bit more gold from your extra adjacency bonus. I think that this is not going to be, in comparison to these two abilities, this extra 2 gold bonus from adjacent holy sites is not going to be significant. So it is nice, but still not all that insane. But yeah, with all this gold you're going to be getting and making everything cheaper to purchase with gold, that's the reason why I think that it's going to be generally better to just purchase things rather than produce them, because you take so much of a hit to your production from the negatives from Songs of the Jelly that it's going to take you significantly longer to produce pretty much anything, especially since your tile yields are going to be terrible whenever you're in the desert. The Suguba definitely makes up for that, though, because that discount is going to be really nice, especially like later on in the game when things cost, thousands of gold. Getting a 20% discount on things that cost thousands of gold could give you a discount of, 200 or 300 gold, that's a very significant discount and something that is very nice. So throughout the game, I think that this is going to be very nice. The other thing is, if you think about it, whenever you're in the early game, you're going to be able to get a decent amount of gold from your mines if you have any mines down. If you have one trade route, you could potentially get a lot of gold from that, which then makes it so that you can buy settlers. And I think that's, once again, I think that's going to be the thing to do with the Mali, is not to produce your settlers, but buy them, because this 20% discount is going to make it very nice so that you can just purchase a bunch of settlers and use them to settle more cities, thus earning more gold, thus making it so you can buy more settlers. And I think that actually might be a strategy that it's not going to be broken, but you can probably expand extremely fast as the Mali, and maybe that'll kind of make up for their early game weakness from not being able to produce units as fast. The other really nice thing is their synergy with economy and religion. So 20% cheaper to purchase units with faith as well means that your missionaries and apostles are going to be a lot cheaper. And one of the biggest struggles with religious games is the fact that missionaries and apostles later on in the game will cost a lot more, because every time you purchase one, they get, like, the next one becomes more expensive. So getting this 20% discount on those as well is going to make it a lot easier for you to spread your religion around. So once again, I think that that is a very nice part. Maybe with this, you probably won't have to take the religious belief that puts the discount on them, so you could use that for one of the other religious beliefs instead, if that's something you want to do, or you could stack them together and get really, really cheap religious units. So I think that this part of the Suguba is very strong, and this is kind of what makes the Mali the Mali. This is what gives them their strategy of purchasing things instead of producing them, and for that, I think it is really strong. The other thing I didn't mention is just that this gold bonus for adjacent holy sites just kind of once again plays into the economy and religion thing with the Mali and makes them a very unique civ. With all that in mind, let's go ahead and just look through the video a little bit more to see some of the stuff that they showed. There's probably a little bit in here that I want to look at. So, and this is a city. Where's the yield? Yeah, so you can see right here we're getting plus 6 gold, or not 6 gold, plus 6 food and 6 faith per turn from having this city settled here. So if you get a capital that's like that, that's surrounded by desert tiles, you're going to have a very nice start, at least when it comes to expanding your population and getting that early pantheon. So I definitely do think that that will be very good in the early game, or just whenever you're expanding, because this is on turn 88, and this city's going to grow up pretty fast because of how much additional food it gets. Not to mention the fact that that extra faith per turn is once again just going to be nice for purchasing missionaries and apostles. What else? Oh, one of the interesting things here that we can see is that normally in the current version of Civ, these tiles would be floodplains because they're desert next to a river. And normally you couldn't put districts on floodplains, but it looks like now it's perfectly okay. You can put districts on floodplains. We could see that back here as well. This is an actual floodplains tile that they have their unique commercial hub on. This might be a little bit risky because it might flood and, blow up the buildings in their commercial hub, but whatever, that's just one of the risks that you run by settling in floodplains. So I think that is a nice touch, and that might make the Mali, that's going to remove some of the weakness of the Mali in the fact that you can put your districts next to rivers in the desert. So one of the things I want to look at here is, once again, just talking about, I know I'm just repeating myself over and over, but talking about that idea of purchasing things rather than producing them. So you can see they have their district here. This is turn 114, and it would probably take, a few turns to produce a horseman. It would take a lot more on the Mali. So normally at this point in the game, it would probably take at least 3 or 4 turns to produce, like, a horseman, say. They're making 184 gold per turn. The horseman costs 255, so really that's effectively 2 turns to produce a horseman. You could produce an archer in just a little bit over 1 turn. You could produce a warrior instantly. You could purchase a lot of things, and the amount of gold that they have compared to the cost of these things means that they are going to be actually able to get things out relatively fast, provided that they are things that you're able to purchase. The settler is still really expensive at 640, but even so, that's only going to be like, 4 turns with this amount of gold per turn? So you're going to be able to not produce things extremely fast. But I think with the amount of gold per turn that they're going to get, this is not going to be a problem, because looking at what the actual numbers are now, this is comparatively very cheap in comparison to how big their economy is. So I definitely think that that's going to be the way to go on the Mali. One of the interesting things here is, well, for one, we have a desert sandstorm, which I think is kind of cool. I don't really know exactly what the effects of those are yet, but either way, that is definitely going to be something that you're going to have to worry about when you're playing the Mali, but that's just kind of a cool part of Gathering Storm. One of the other things I wanted to look at here, though, is this right here. So they're researching education right now, and I don't know what this is. I'm going to assume that this is some sort of new wonder. Maybe it's some wonder that is, like, relatively associated with the Mali, but I have no idea what that is. If any of you happen to recognize what that is, go ahead and let me know in chat, and I'll probably either pin or heart your comment, and we can find out what in the world that building is. And there are 2 things that I want to look at right here. So for one, you can see that this right here is a new natural wonder, provides plus 4 gold, plus 1 science, and plus 1 culture to the tile. I don't know what it's called, or, so once again, if any of you recognize it, feel free to let me know. But I think that's going to be a pretty strong desert wonder. Most of the other desert wonders are just kind of meh. I guess some of them are decent, but I think that that's going to be a pretty good one, especially, if you're playing Mali, because that's just more straight up gold per turn. Because if you have all those tiles, that's 16 gold per turn. So early on, that's really nice. The other thing I wanted to look at here is the fact that religious pressure still hasn't changed, and I really wish that it would, because religious pressure is so bad in Civ 6. If you're unsure as to why, go ahead and watch my religion in-depth video, but pretty much the amount of pressure that is generated by just like passively through your cities and by trade routes is so small in comparison to the amount that you get from one missionary like spread religion that it's like unreal. So plus 0.5 per turn, and in order to get the same effect as like one spread religion from a missionary, it would take several hundred turns to reach the same amount of difference that is from literally a single spread religion charge from a missionary. Keep in mind, missionaries have 3 spread religion charges, so it would probably take you, maybe 500 turns to reach the effect of one missionary if you were using like this trade route pressure alone. So I really hope that they buff this pressure. I think somewhere around maybe 4 or 5 would be more reasonable, and I think that they could buff the pressure from cities as well to correspond with that. So if in the event that anyone from the Civ team or from Firaxis is watching, I think that's something to consider, is buffing pressure and just seeing how it works out. I mean, maybe it would be terrible, but if it's terrible, then you can just revert it. But I think that that's just a little bit of food for thought, is maybe consider buffing this up a little bit. I do believe that's about it for the Mali. So overall, just to kind of give a TLDR of my opinion on the Mali, I'm very unsure of how they're going to be. I have high hopes that they're going to be pretty good, actually, but it's very hard for me to tell just because I've never played a game with the strategy that they're going to play the game. So pretty much every game I play in Civ right now is to, get a lot of production and build things, or get a lot of tile yields and build things. But on the Mali, that's not at all going to be the case. The strategy on the Mali is to just amass gold and purchase everything. And I'm not sure if it's going to be very good or very bad. I think it's going to be pretty good. So my just general, their unique unit's terrible, so that definitely sucks. They're going to be a terrible domination Civ. But I think for religious victory, they'll be decent. I think for scientific victory, they might be decent. For culture victory, they might be okay. It's going to be hard to tell. And for religious victory, I forget if I said that one already or not, but for religious victory, I think that they're actually going to be pretty strong. Probably like either A or S tier for religious victory. For their overall, estimated ranking, I would imagine they're probably going to be probably about B tier. That's just kind of my general my general prediction, that they're probably going to be B tier, but it's very hard for me to tell right now. But thank you everyone for watching. I've been the Saxy Gamer. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like. If not, feel free to dislike. If you're looking for more Civilization 6 content, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to post your thoughts on the Mali in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.